With a Rick Grimes spin-off on the horizon, let's remember all of the post-apocalyptic sheriff's best Walking Dead moments, as I have specially made this video to highlight the best Rick Grimes moments in The Walking Dead. Make sure you stick with me to the end of the video so you don't miss any part of the gist, shall we? Without any further delay, let's get into it. The Walking Dead was always Rick's story until he blew up the bridge and flew away in a helicopter. The Walking Dead has come a long way since its first episode dropped on Halloween 2010, with new cast members, jaw-dropping character reveals, devastating goodbyes to fan favorites, and big bads that could inspire terror in even the bravest survivors. Rick departed in the early episodes of the 9th season, and that has been a boon to some of the supporting characters like Carol, Negan, Daryl, and Maggie, who have stepped up to fill the void. Still, there's no denying that Rick's absence continues to be felt all these many episodes later, with the currently unnamed series featuring him and Michonne set to premiere at some point after the main series conclusion. We're looking back on the man, the myth, the legend, and perhaps the character most pivotal to the show's development over its decade plus on the air, Rick Grimes. The first best Grimes moment we'll talk about is Rick wearing all the guts in Season 1, Episode 2, Guts. Over most of its run, The Walking Dead has featured a revolving ensemble cast and regularly changing character focus. Yet in the beginning, the plot centered on Rick and his perspective as a lone survivor surrounding himself with others out of necessity. Rick's journey began with the near-perfect horror show Days Gone By, but Guts saw him moving past his status as a confused wanderer as he started making heavy decisions for the good of the group. Trying to flee Atlanta through a zombie horde, he teamed up with Glenn and T-Dog while abandoning the white supremacist Merle on a rooftop. They fought walkers, disguised themselves in viscera, secured a vehicle, and eventually got the heck out of Dodge. Rick's ability to think on his feet and adapt to any situation shone as we saw the first glimpse of the leader he later became. The next best Grimes moment in our list was when the bar's vibe went south in Season 2, Episode 8, Nebraska, after the shocking ending of Pretty Much Dead Already, in which Carol's daughter Sophia was shown to have reanimated only for Rick to step forward and put her down. Nebraska saw him mitigating the fallout as his group was ordered to leave Herschel Green's farm. Sophia's transformation was discovered due to Rick's buddy Shane breaking Herschel's rule against killing the walkers he kept in hopes of an eventual cure, calling out Shane for pushing the situation to a head in the worst possible way. Rick started the episode in a bad place, only for things to get increasingly worse. Finding Herschel at a bar drowning in his sorrows, Rick drank with two strangers that he then killed when they demanded to join his group. This was a drastic move, and it marked a turning point for Rick as he was ready to do anything to keep his crew safe. Next was when Rick finally took out Shane in Season 2, Episode 12, Better Angels. Throughout the first two seasons, Shane's animosity toward his former friend and partner, Rick, was a growing threat to the safety of the group as a whole. This was where it all concluded as Shane attempted to kill Rick and frame a dead man for the murder to usurp him as both the leader and Lori's husband. When Shane pulled a gun on him, Rick's defense was no defense at all as he refused to fight, defying Shane to kill an unarmed man. This threw Shane off enough for Rick to close in and kill him by stabbing him in the chest, effectively ending one of the biggest threats of the first two seasons. Rick's strategizing saved the entire group from Shane's violent outburst, but it came with losing someone he had once trusted with everything. Next up, when Rick tore a throat out in Season 4, Episode 16, A. After losing both Shane and Lori, as well as the group's moral guiding light, Herschel, Rick continued to struggle with the demands of leadership in a cutthroat post-apocalyptic world, flashing back on Herschel's warnings that his ruthless approach was costing him the love of his remaining family. We saw Rick as both the doting father and the fearsome protector in this episode. In the present day, he, Daryl, Michonne, and Carl are captured by the Claimers, who threaten to torture and kill them. Rick responded to this by ripping out the throat of the Claimers' leader, Joe, ultimately getting them to the next crisis as they were trapped in the township of Terminus, with some of the lost members of the crew. Undeterred, Rick rallied the troops by growling, "They're screwing with the wrong people." Then there's the Constable Rick in Season 5, Episode 12, Remember. Rick and the group entered the Alexandria safe zone, at first refusing to surrender their weapons, but ultimately conceding when it became clear that the township will offer desperately needed respite from the constant onslaught of walkers. The residents proved to be low on survival skills, however, with Rick silently plotting to take over the town if the going gets tough. Despite that, his relationship with Carl was at its strongest, with Carl confiding in his dad and the two teaming up to take down walkers in the woods. Rick and Michonne were appointed constables of the town, with its leader Deanna noting that Rick was already trying to protect the safe zone when he warned her against taking in strangers. What about when Michonne clocked Rick in Season 5, Episode 15, Try? Here, Rick ran the gamut. At first, admirable, but out of control by the episode's end. Knowing Jesse's husband, Pete, was an abusive hothead, Rick addressed the issue with Deanna, only to be brushed off due to Pete's value to the community as a surgeon. Disgusted, Rick went straight to the source, talking to Jesse, who told him she'll be able to manage her husband. Instead, Pete returned home, and Rick confronted him, leading to a rowdy fight between the two men that eventually spilled out onto the street. While Rick won, he fled into an increasingly unhinged rant, ultimately silenced when Michonne cold-cocked him. That in itself was a great Rick moment, showing that Michonne was the one person who can always talk him down, even if it required a quick uppercut to get her point across. Another great Rick moment worth mentioning was when Rick tore up some walkers in Season 6, Episode 9, No Way Out. This was one of the episodes where every action causes an ever more chaotic reaction, making for one of the fastest-paced episodes of the whole series. Starting with Daryl blowing up a handful of Negan's saviors, things only escalated from there, while Carol and Morgan faced off against an invading gang. Jessie and her sons were killed, with an errant shot from her boy Sam clipping Carl's eye when he attempted to take out Rick. With Carl hospitalized and unconscious, Rick realized there's nothing he could do for his son, but that he was perfectly capable of hacking away at zombies until the cows came home. Doing just that, he inspired the whole gang to join him, and they all worked together to defeat the horde until every last one was in pieces on the ground. Next was when Rick was kind of merciful in Season 8, Episode 16, Wrath. The 7th and 8th seasons of The Walking Dead pushed Rick to his absolute limit as he witnessed the violent murders of his friends Abraham and Glenn, endured the deaths of several other allies, was forced into servitude by Negan, and lost his son to a zombie bite. As Rick's group rallied to take out the saviors once and for all, Rick reflected on Carl's sense of hope and how he had always urged him to be more merciful. Suffering the loss of the child he had done everything to protect, Rick encountered Negan in a final fight to the death. Yet when Rick finally beats Negan, he honors Carl's faith in their worst opponent to date and showed a mixture of mercy and cruelty by imprisoning him rather than killing him. Wrapping it up, let's talk about when Rick was literally back in the saddle in Season 9, Episode 5, What Comes After. Rick's departing episode was an all-timer for the series, with Rick jumping on a horse, echoing the events of days gone by. Rather than arrogantly riding into the unknown as he had in that opening episode, Rick struggled to stay awake and draw the walkers away from his friends. Given this self-sacrificing act, we came face to face with how much Rick has changed over this many seasons. Suffering from a gaping wound, our fearless leader wavered in and out of consciousness, hallucinating many of the people he lost along the way as he desperately tried to stay ahead of the horde. Though it was clear by the episode's end that Rick had survived a blast that decimated most of the walkers on his heels, this final act of heroism was a stunning note to close out on, even if it wasn't intended to be permanent. That concludes today's video. If you found the video helpful, please do consider giving us a thumbs up, and don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.